Okay, good morning, and I think we're live on YouTube and on Facebook. Good morning, everybody. Shalom, and welcome to today's Torah study. We're actually closing out, we're finishing the final section of the series that we've been learning for over a year now. It's the stories of the ancient kings of Israel, the biblical history series. And we've started at the very beginning of this series. We started with the kingdom of Israel, the schism of the kingdom of Israel, with the son of Solomon. Rechavam was the son of Solomon. That's where we began the series. And I believe that Winston has already sequenced this series. Winston, if you have, please just post a link. Today we're finishing this entire series, this entire long story about the kings of Israel, the biblical history series, as we enter a new season. And I think maybe next week we'll be starting a brand new regimen of study. We're changing our Torah study style. There'll be a lot of different coming to the table. So we're also finishing the Tanya tomorrow, God willing. So we're going to be starting a brand new regimen of study, a new season, a new semester, a new style of Torah study. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to remind you where we're standing over here. We're talking about the conquest of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar the Babylonian, who conquered Jerusalem. There was the prophet Jeremiah who prophesied the destruction of Jerusalem. Let's take a look at some of what was going on the good side of things, at least the prophecies of redemption, the prophecies of hope. So according to the instruction of the Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who conquered Jerusalem, he instructed Nebuzaradan, his general, to give permission to Jeremiah the prophet to stay in the land of Israel and not to be taken captive. However, Jeremiah refused to leave his people at the time of their need, and he joined together with them as they walked in tears as they marched towards Babylon to the foreign land. As they walked along the way and they saw the bodies of the corpses and the blood of their people, he cried out and he said, "Why didn't you listen to my voice, the children of Israel? Why did you mock me and you didn't believe the prophecies that I told you about the impending destruction and the exile of the Jewish people? Woe to me and woe to my brothers that I see you in this situation." Together with the prophet, the prisoners of Israel also cried bitter tears. And Nebuzaradan, the general, did not actually imprison Yirmiyahu himself. But, as mentioned, the prophet wanted to participate in the suffering of his people, and that's why he tied himself with chains of iron to the other prisoners who were being led to Babylon with chains of iron around their necks. He chained himself to the prisoners of Israel. When Nebuzaradan saw that Jeremiah was chained, he was very upset about this, because this was an instruction from the commander-in-chief, from Nebuchadnezzar himself, not to imprison Jeremiah at all. Remember, Jeremiah and Nebuchadnezzar were friends when they were children. We spoke about this a few weeks ago in an earlier class. You can listen to it at youtube.com/Jewish Gardens. So there was a lot of history between Nebuchadnezzar and Jeremiah when they were already children. So Nebuzaradan was horrified to see that Yirmiyahu, the prophet, was treated like a prisoner, and he let him go. But he chained himself. So that's why he went over to him. Nebuzaradan went over to Jeremiah and he asked him in wonder. He says, "Why are you doing this to yourself? I'm surprised at you. Are you some sort of a false prophet? Is it not that for a very long time you were prophesying to this people about the impending destruction and the exile? And now when your prophecy came true, now you're crying? What are you crying about? You were the one that prophesied this, right? You should be joyous that your prophecies came true. Or maybe you thought that you were a liar. You didn't believe in yourself. I'm also surprised that you're not fearful of the punishment and of the torture that is awaiting these people that you are voluntarily joining. Why do you insist to be tied up with them? I'm trying not to hurt you. You should know that if you reach Babylon with your hands tied, the king will command me to be executed because he forbid me from doing anything harmful to you. Would you be wanting to cause my death?" This is crazy, right? I mean, this is Nebuzaradan, who was the chief butcher here, right? The prophet did not answer Nebuzaradan the wicked, and he went together with his people, which was beaten and bruised, together with them and their heavy burdens, which were placed upon them by their oppressors. On the banks of the river, Hashem revealed himself. On the banks of the river Prat, banks of the Euphrates River, Naharaprat. Hashem revealed himself to Jeremiah and he said to him like this, Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, if you are going together with my sons to Babylon, I will stay with them in the land of Israel. But if you stay in the land of Israel, then I will go with them into Babylon. So that's what Hashem tells Jeremiah. If you go to Babylon, I'll stay with the Jews in Israel. If you stay in Israel, I'll go with the Jews into Babylon. So the prophet says in his heart, what will be the purpose of the people of Israel if I go with them into their exile? I think they'd be much better off if Hashem was with them in exile in Babylon, right? I won't be able to save them or to minimize their suffering. It's much better if the Hashem, their God, goes with them together with them into Babylon. He will protect them from every suffering in the foreign land. Therefore, Yirmiyahu said to Hashem, go with your sons and help them in the time of their distress. That's what Hashem tells the prophet, and he promises that he himself will return to the land of Israel, and he will be there with the remnants of the people of Israel that remained in the land of Israel. Before Yirmiyahu separated from the hostages, and I remember he was free to roam as he wanted. The Vuzradan wished that he would leave. When they heard that Yirmiyahu was leaving them and he was going to the land of Israel, they all started crying out. They said, our father, our prophet, how can you leave us in the time of our distress? Stay with us and pray to Hashem that he'll have mercy upon us and he'll redeem us. And Yirmiyahu said to them like this, now you're crying, shkoyach, right? Thank you very much for waking up now. Now you're asking me to turn to beg Hashem for mercy. Why don't you do this when I rebuked you and I warned you about the impending destruction that was coming if you were going to persevere in your sin? If you would just cry out to Hashem one time from the depths of your heart when you were still in your land, the entire decree would have been cancelled. But you didn't listen to my voice. You didn't believe in me, and you didn't return to Hashem, your God. And this is what happened to you. These words penetrated to their hearts. However, they were too late. The temple was already destroyed. The enemy soldiers had already conquered them and had mercilessly beat them. If you will not stop crying, said the Babylonian soldiers, your end will be bitter. And they hurried them up to keep on moving. With a heavy heart, Jeremiah leaves the hostages, and before he goes, he says to the soldiers of Babylon, return to your land and return to your temples, to your idolatrous temples. Praise your idols for having given Hashem into your hands. However, you should know that it is a decree from heaven to destroy Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. You didn't succeed in conquering. You did not succeed in conquering a nation that was strong. You succeeded in conquering a nation that already was destined to be conquered. The city that you conquered was as if it was already decimated before you even got there. You are glorifying yourself in your strength and in your wisdom for no reason. If Hashem, the master of the universe, had not delivered his people into your hands, his city and his temple into your hands, you would never have been able to overcome them. The whole way Yirmiyahu was walking back to Israel with his head hung, and he was sort of dragging his feet. He would see the dead of the Jewish people strewn across the way. He would pick up their body parts. They were cut off by the wicked ones, the wicked Babylonians. He would kiss them and hug them, and he'd cry out and he would say, my brothers and friends, my beloved sons, see what has happened to you. Did I not warn you? Why did you not return to Hashem, your God? Why did you not remove the terrible decree which you could have removed from yourself, right? So this really is the story of Jeremiah going back to Jerusalem. Very, very sad story, but let's conclude now with some prophecies of hope. I'd just like to welcome Mickey, who just got back from his travel somewhere. Welcome home, Mickey. We missed you in Shul today. We had 9 men. Marty, good morning. He had a birthday, August 10th. Mazel tov to you, Marty. Happy birthday. Winston, shalom, and Rob Berger is with us also. Steve is with me live in the audience, and Elaine also on YouTube. Good to see everybody. So let's wrap it all up over here with some prophecies of hope. It's pretty depressing so far, right? Let's try to pick it up. When he returns to the land of Israel, Jeremiah sees the land desolate. He sees the dead strewn across the fields, being eaten by the birds of the sky, and he cried a lot. There were some leftovers, some remnants, some survivors in the land of Israel after the destruction, and the leader of them was a man by the name of Gedalia. Gedalia, the son of Achikam. Does anybody know who Gedalia is? There's a fast day that we fast the day after Rosh Hashanah. It's called Tzom Gedalia, the Fast of Gedalia. Now here's the story of why we fast the day after the day after Rosh Hashanah every year. It's called the Fast of Gedalia. In brief, what happened here is that there was a kingdom. There was still a Jewish remnant in the land of Israel. It was under the rulership of Gedalia because of a terrible civil war that we're going to learn about in a moment. The Yishmael, who was a leader, another leader of the Jewish people, killed Gedalia during a Rosh Hashanah feast celebration that he was invited to. And this basically caused a civil war to erupt, and no Jews were left in the land of Israel as a result of it. The Babylonians came in and they just cleared out all the Jews from the land of Israel. They figured the Jews couldn't live there anymore, and because of that, there were no Jews left in Israel for a period of time, which really is what brought in the Palestinians that claim that it's their land. So had Gedalia not been killed, we would have had an unbroken presence in the land of Israel, and we would have saved ourselves a lot of problems at the United Nations, right? So it's just interesting who this Gedalia is. A few millennia later, 2,000 years later, 2,500 years later. The issue also is that we don't fast on Rosh Hashanah because you're not allowed to fast on Rosh Hashanah, so we fast the day after Rosh Hashanah. Okay, here's what happened when Yirmiyahu sees... when they saw Yirmiyahu come back, they were very, very happy, and they asked him to stay with them and to encourage them through their tragedy. When Yirmiyahu saw the miserable remnants without a house, without a family, without any guardian or anything, he cried out and he said, "Hashem, my God, see what these wicked ones have done to our people. Don't ever forgive the Babylonians. I hope that you'll soon repay them with their according to their evil." I see Winston has posted our biblical history series. Thank you, Winston, for posting the link to the biblical history series that's on Facebook right now. And Joji, good morning to you. Shalom as well. So if anybody wants to hear, I see on Facebook and on YouTube, Winston has posted the link to all the previous Jewish history classes. You'll find them all at this link, right? Also in the past Friday email, you'll notice that we posted the link to the kosher crash course, right? They're all there as well. So we're slowly organizing them, and Winston is helping us with organizing all of our classes. Thank you for that, Winston. Okay, so Elijah returns to Jerusalem, to the place of the Holy Temple. When he stands up upon the destruction, the destroyed remnants of the Holy Temple, he hears the voice of a woman crying out, and she says, "Who will be able to comfort a woman who is bereaved and miserable?" When he came close, he asked, why was she crying out from the bottom of her heart? She said to him, "I will not be able to describe to you my suffering and my destruction. My husband left me. He went to a faraway land, and the house has fallen on my sons, and they were killed. And now I don't know who to be mourning over first. Do I mourn over my husband who left me alone? Or do I mourn over my 7 sons who all died when the house fell upon them?" Jeremiah comforted her, and he said to her, Don't mourn, good woman. Your lot is not worse than the lot of the entire people of Israel, the mother of Zion. You are like Job, that Hashem brought upon Job much suffering, and at the end Hashem comforted him, and he gave him sons and daughters and great wealth, much more than he had beforehand. You too, said Jeremiah, and also the people of Israel, Hashem will comfort. Your sons will be gathered in from all the corners of the earth, and they will be brought into you. Don't cry anymore and don't suffer. Jerusalem and the Holy Temple were built by men, and they were destroyed by men. However, in the future, the Holy Temple will be built by Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and his city and his Holy Temple. And then no man will be able to have the power to destroy it anymore. When he saw the destroyed sites of Jerusalem, he cried out, Hashem cried out to his prophet, and he said to the prophets, "Rise and comfort Jerusalem, the holy city, the wondrous city which has been destroyed. Let the first prophet come, Hosea." Sorry, the first prophet came. His name was Hosea. And he said to Jerusalem, "Don't be sad." This is a prophecy. Don't be sad. The days will come when Hashem, the master of the universe, will save and protect you. Just like the dew, D-E-W, the dew, which saves the plants. The dew, dew is something which comes even in the desert, even in a drought. There's always dew, so the dew is very dependable. When they heard these words, Jerusalem still was not comforted. And she answered, I don't accept from you the comfort, because you, Hoshea, prophesied much bad things about us. You said that we will be like dry roots. And how can you say differently? So Hoshea steps down and the prophet Yoel stands up. Yoel says, I've come to comfort Jerusalem in the name of Hashem. The days will come when your mountains will drip. What's that? Assis.
Assis?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the way you describe a fruit or a vegetable that has a lot of juice.
Gotcha. That's good. So thank you, Steve. So the days will come when your mountains will drip with liquid, with like something which is fresh. A fresh fruit is filled with liquid. When it's going to be nice and fresh again, all goodness will thrive in your land. But also the words of the prophet Yoel that Jerusalem was refusing to accept, because we don't want to hear your words, because you prophesied that no more grapes will grow in our land, and not a drop of wine will be left to drink. So Yoel goes down and rises the prophet Amos. Amos rises and he says, so said Hashem, I will raise the sukkah of David, which has fallen, and Hanofelet, right? And the city refused to believe him. Not long ago, you told us in the name of Hashem that you will fall and not rise again. And now you're telling us that Hashem will rebuild our temple? That's what Jerusalem says to Amos, and he too went upon his way. Then rises the prophet Micha to comfort Jerusalem, and he says, listen, Jerusalem, the word of Hashem, the days are coming when Hashem will have mercy upon you, and you will build your destroyed ones, because there's no one like him who is merciful and forgiving for those who sin. Jerusalem once again said, how can you say this? And were you not the one, Micha, who said that great suffering will come upon us as a punishment for the sins of Israel? Afterwards rises the prophet Nahum and he says, were there not evil people amongst you? No, there will not be evil people amongst you. But Jerusalem did not accept the prophecy of Nahum. And she said, you said to us that from you will come out the evil thinker over Hashem, and evil people will rule over you, will be all over you. Even the prophecies of comfort of Habakkuk the prophet, that told Jerusalem to be joyous, because Hashem will come out to redeem her. Jerusalem also did not believe. We have not forgotten the prophecies that you, Habakkuk, said to us, said Jerusalem, we will not listen to you. No, sorry, you prophesied that Hashem will not listen to you, even when you cry out to him. Haggai comes out, prophesizing that Hashem's blessing will dwell upon everything that grows in Israel. Their city refused to believe. How can we listen to your words? You told us that the people of Israel will plant a lot, will sow a lot, and will reap very little. Zechariah rises and he says, the days will come when Hashem will be angry at the nations. And Jerusalem said, we cannot believe your words, because we still remember the prophecy that you said to the people of Israel, that Hashem has much anger upon our ancestors. Remember, Israel had been tremendous sinners, right? The last of the prophets who came to comfort Jerusalem was the prophet Malachi. According to many opinions, this was also Mordechai. Different opinions whether Malachi was Mordechai or not. But also his prophecy they refused to accept. The day will come and all the nations will want to be like you, because you will be a desirable and beloved land for Hashem. And she answered, not long ago you told us that Hashem has no desire in our land, that he doesn't want anything to do with us. And how can you say the opposite? When Hashem saw that Jerusalem was refusing to be comforted, he went to the ancestors, to the forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he told them, rise from your graves and go to the city which is being destroyed, that refuses to be comforted. Abraham rises up, he goes to Jerusalem, and he says, our holy city, I have come to comfort you in your suffering. Jerusalem said to him, how can you comfort us? And you said that in the mountain of Hashem, you said, Behar Hashem Yira'eh, in the mountain of Hashem, Hashem will be revealed. You promised that Hashem will dwell amongst us, and now he's abandoned us. He's abandoned us in the hands of the enemy. So Yitzchak rises up and he tries to comfort Jerusalem, but also she refuses to to listen to Yitzchak. Why? Because your sons are Esav. You had two sons, Yaakov and Esav. Esav is your sons. Esav is the one that rejoiced in our suffering. So it's your sons. If our sons would have overwhelmed the enemy, then your sons, Esav, would have come to assist Nebuchadnezzar to kill my boys, to kill us. Therefore, we cannot accept your comfort, Yitzchak. And then came Yaakov Avinu, Jacob rises up, and Moses as well. Also, they refused to accept his words until the point that her suffering was so great that Hashem commands as follows. Much curses have I written in your Torah. Jerusalem says to Moses, you've mentioned much curses about Jerusalem in your Torah. Until Moses stands before Hashem and he says, we all went to comfort Jerusalem, the prophets and the forefathers, and we did everything that you commanded us to do. But you refuses to accept our comfort. Hashem says, I myself will therefore go down to comfort Jerusalem, the holy city and the temple. Hashem goes down to the land and he asks Jerusalem why she doesn't want to be comforted by the prophets and the forefathers. Jerusalem answers, Master of the universe, in your Torah it says that the one who lights the fire that damages will have to pay for it. Whoever lit fire that caused damage in Jerusalem has to compensate for the damage. You are our God, are the one that destroyed Jerusalem. You lit the fire. So you're liable for the damage. Right? Can you imagine the chutzpah here? Jerusalem says to Hashem, you are the one that destroyed us, and you are therefore fiscally responsible. Therefore, we cannot be comforted by people. Only you, Hashem, are able to heal us and to comfort us from our distress. This all obviously is metaphoric, because what does it mean that Jerusalem speaks to Hashem? Jerusalem speaks to the forefathers. It's obviously some sort of a medrash, a metaphor, right? And then Hashem says to Jerusalem, you are correct. I was the one that punished you, and I will be the one that will comfort you. Don't mourn anymore, Jerusalem. I will rebuild you. Your stones will be rebuilt, and you will have a wall of fire, and no one ever will be able to conquer you ever again. And that, my friends, concludes this era of Jewish history. We learned now from the rule of Solomon's son all the way through to the destruction of our first temple and the presence of the Jewish people in Babylon. Obviously, Jewish history certainly continues in the land of Babylon, which is a tremendous story in where the Purim story takes place, and eventually where the Jewish people return to Israel for the second building of the temple. And there they have the Hanukkah story takes place, right? And that's the rest of Jewish history. But at least we have a major part of Jewish history over here, from the son of Solomon all the way through to the Babylonian exile. And that concludes our Torah study here today. God willing, tomorrow we'll continue with the study of Tanya. To Winston's question, is there any special meaning or historical Jewish event that occurred in Elul 8? Not that I'm aware of. On today's Jewish state of Elul 8, there's nothing that stands out particularly for me to remember. I mean, I'm sure that many things happened on the 8th of Elul. Let me see. Today, 8th of Elul, 76 years ago, actually was a proclamation of Indonesian independence. Interesting. Indonesian independence. I imagine that was from the British, Winston, right? 76 years ago. I imagine. But that's nice. Good that you guys got independence. But I can't think of anything specific that happened on the 8th of Elul that sticks out to me right now. There is on Chabad.org, there is a place where you can see today in Jewish history. There's a place on every day in Chabad.org where they show you whatever happened in Jewish history on the States. There might be some interesting stuff over there. But it was independence from Japan. Interesting. Japan was the imperial rulers of Indonesia. Very nice. Anyways, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Rob. And Joji, thank you very much. Shalom, everybody. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, we're done.